into this front area right in front of the bedroom door. And what we also saw was the bullet holes, almost like Swiss cheese, in this small apartment. Probably could fit most of the apartment into this room here. It was a very small, what was then known as kind of a ghetto apartment, with just plaster board divisions between these 2 or 3 bedrooms, and they came in with a machine gun and they laced the walls with the Panthers in those bedrooms. And you could
machine gun? I didn't recall hearing that.
Yeah, there
was a
machine gun. Joe Gorman had a machine gun, and he stitched the wall, and you could see all of the bullets, you know, the holes, and you could line them up with dowels to show where each bullet went. And that was another way we showed it wasn't a shootout. We were able to show that all the bullets went in, and none of them came out in any manner other than perhaps that one in the door that would have shown any shots fired by the Panthers. So all of that at the same time that this was one of the most remarkable events media-wise in the history of the city. It was on the front page. There were 4 newspapers then, 2 mornings and 2 afternoons. And all 4 of them had this on the front page for literally a month. And there was a newspaper war that was created. The Tribune papers were very much pro-Hanrahan and the police and put their version out. And after we convinced the Marshall Fields, the Fields papers, that being the Sun-Times and the Daily News at that time, that in fact it was, and that took some convincing and showing the editor of the Sun-Times in a nighttime visit that he made, the realities of where the bullets went and the blood, they became much more fair and open about how they approached it, and they put the Panthers stories out, and they pointed out that the bullets that Hanrahan pointed to say, here's where the Panthers shot. Well, we showed the Sun-Times that they were nail heads, not bullet holes.
Can you kind of recount that? Who was the editor? And you see you brought him in the middle of the night. You talk like 2 in the morning.
Well, okay. Here's what happened was initially all 4 papers totally bought the police story and blared on the front pages with pictures and headlines and the Panther shootout, you know, Hampton killed and shootout, and just put just in, you know, in verba or in verse what the police said happened. There was a young reporter, his name's Brian Boyer. He wrote for the Sun-Times. Brian Boyer came to the apartment early, maybe that day, maybe the next morning, and he looked, and we showed him what really went on. He wrote what was the first article that challenged the police version of the events and said the physical evidence doesn't match up with what they're saying. He wrote it, and the editors of the Sun-Times put it on page 43 next to the obituaries, you know, continuing in the main with stories that supported the police. Boyer quit. He quit the Sun-Times that night. This caused the editor of the Sun-Times, who at that time was a guy named Jim Hoge. Jim Hoge has now gone on, I think his latest job, he went into Washington, but now I think he's the head of Human Rights Watch. But in any event, at that time, he came to the apartment, it was probably 8 or 9 at night, with his wife or fiancée or girlfriend, I don't know who it was, I was there, dressed to the nines. They came from the opera. His fiancée had on a fur, and they're coming into this blood-soaked ghetto apartment, and you know, just totally destroyed apartment. And they come and we show them through. And after they came, after that, that's when the Sun-Times and the Daily News, which was the afternoon paper, the field paper, changed their policy. And that's when they started to run stories that showed the reality of what had happened. And there's one other event that has always stuck in my mind. I spent about 10 days there until the 17th, I think. I think we had access to that apartment till the 17th of December, which would have been almost 2 weeks. And the Panthers had the presence of mind to conduct tours of the apartment and show the bullet, riddled walls, to show the bloody mattress, and to describe what Panther's version and really what was the truth of the matter was to literally hundreds and thousands of people off the west side, come from the south side, and also, concerned white people were coming from the suburbs and going on these tours. One day, an older African-American woman was going through the apartment while I was there. And she looked around and she shook her head and she said, "Ain't nothing but a northern lynching." And that stuck with me to this day. And I always recount that because it seemed to me it was such a poignant and direct summary of what had happened there. And so anyway, that assassination, the fact that we went to that apartment, other ones of us, other lawyers went to the jail and interviewed the surviving Panthers, the ones who weren't killed and who weren't taken to the hospital. Several were taken to the hospital, but several, including Fred Hampton's girlfriend, Deborah Johnson, who wasn't physically injured. She was pregnant. She was 8.5 months pregnant at that time. Jeff Hoge went and talked to her, so he found out right from the beginning what had happened and how they had in fact assassinated Fred. And she told the story about how he was asleep next to her, how the bullets started raining in and vibrating the mattress, that Fred didn't wake up, but he didn't appear to be shot, and they took her out of the room. They mean the police. And there was like a lull in the shooting. And they took out the surviving Panthers and brought them in, to one of the main rooms. And then she heard a police officer say, "He's barely alive. He'll barely make it," or something like this. And then she heard 2 more shots. And that we always felt, and the ballistics evidence confirmed, that was when they finished off Fred Hampton, put a bullet in his head. So that combined with what we saw there was just something that we could never turn back from, and we didn't. First they arrested all the Panthers, and we represented them, several of them, along with a set of lawyers, of very tremendous criminal defense lawyers in the city, mostly African-American defense lawyers. When that case was thrown out because the ballistics evidence showed the FBI disproved all of the contentions that there was a shootout, and showed ballistically what we saw visually, which was that it was a shoot-in. Case against the Panthers was thrown out, so then we brought this civil rights suit, and we fought that case for 13 years. And during that 13 years, Jeff Hoge and myself, Dennis Cunningham, and other lawyers in the office fought that case, and during the case, and it was a civil rights case, it was a damages case, we were able to uncover evidence that showed that not only was this a murder, the assassination, not only was the police and state's attorney involved, but that behind it all was the FBI.
I'm going to move the camera.
Mhm.